In the summer of 2021, Evie and I were headed back from New Orleans and were a couple hours into our jam session-filled journey when I noticed a hitchhiker being buried by the boulder-sized bag on his back. With just a passing glance at the man, I determined he was in his late 60s or early 70s and began to guess what sort of music he'd enjoy. Without thinking too hard, I offered Evie a smirk and said, "Jim Croce," before pulling over and offering the stranger a ride. By the third song, the man was eager to announce that he hadn't heard Jim Croce in years, and at times I could even hear him humming along. Jim Croce was a singer-songwriter whose acoustic renderings were often reflective of everyday dramas we all endure. His pastel paintings of the past and blue-collar blended blues-adjacent acoustics complement each other well. Even those unaccustomed to an acoustic sound can find comfort in Jim's more boot-tapping, high-tempo songs. Jim's career wasn't the overnight success it appeared to be. In fact, he'd hold numerous blue-collar jobs throughout his career as a traveling musician, and these jobs would introduce Jim to the moments and men who'd become the subjects of his songs and the source of his success. Unfortunately, Jim passed away in 1973 at the age of 30 in a plane crash. Jim's final letter to his wife and son was delivered to their home just a week after his passing. He spoke of how eager he was to return home and how he dreamt of leaving the music industry for a career that would allow him to be home with his family more often.
Photographs and memories, Christmas cards you sent to me, all that I have are these to remember you.
I think of Jim quite a lot. His sensational songwriting, his everyday man aesthetic, and the tragedy that ended his promising life and career. I've admired him as a man and musician for years now. The reach of his songwriting has nearly doubled the span of his life, and the message in his music remains as relevant as ever, 50 years removed from its release. His third album, You Don't Mess Around with Jim, will jolt Jim into the minds of millions of Americans. The title track is an infectious tale about a myth of a man named Jim. The song's chorus issues a warning of things you should refrain from doing, and you better believe it, messing around with Jim is an ultimate no-no. While the song was Jim's first hit, it certainly wouldn't be his last. Bad Bad Leroy Brown and Time in a Bottle each spent 2 weeks atop the Billboard Top 100 in 1973. The former describes a trouble-seeking, lady-pleasing future felon of a fellow, whereas the latter is something of a declaration of dedication to his unborn son. While these songs are nothing less than spectacular, I personally prefer the likes of I Got a Name, Box Number 10, and Walking Back to Georgia. Each of these speak to my adventurous spirit and unquenchable urge to discover new quests and conflicts to conquer. I find Box Number 10 particularly interesting as Jim details a man who's down on his luck and in desperate need of his parents' financial support. The man left his small town for New York City and has suffered a series of setbacks that have sent his dreams of success to the sewers. Homeless yet hopeful, the man is adamant that some money will even the odds against him and set him back on his way. This story reminds me of 8 Million Stories by A Tribe Called Quest, where Phife Dawg spends nearly 4 minutes describing everything that's gone wrong in his life. His blood pressure is high, his car was broken into, he gets on the wrong flight, and he's even robbed for the little money that he has. Songs like this always hit home with me because they describe tangible experiences. Much of that will happen or has happened to you, and it's relieving to remind yourself that you're not alone. Jim's stories of love, loss, and life feel like yours, not the glamorous high society sulking seen from some artists. It's a reminder that though we may attempt to, we can't escape reality. As Yasin Bey once said, suckers trying to hide like the struggle won't find them, then the sun busts through the clouds to clearly remind them it's everywhere. And I've traveled many miles to Jim's music. In cars, on foot, on flights and trains the same. He's the voice that accompanied me on the countless hikes that have muddied my boots and the endless overlooks that have opened my eyes. Although his sun set some 5 decades ago, his music continues to brighten the days of everyday people near and far. May the stars of yesteryear continue to brighten our tomorrows.
'Cause tomorrow morning everything'll turn out right.